Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear students. I'd like to start by thanking SIANI for picking a seminar approach or a concept which is very close to my heart, something in between research and policy, science and practice. And I think, at least back home in Finland, we would need more of that. We have some attempts, but I think there is a lack of that. So, and also, of course, SIFI, which is very fit for then stepping in to help in this respect. We have had very well-informed speakers this afternoon, specialists that have covered the landscape approach topic in a most professional way and using different angles. And as you can understand, this task to try to cover now all the aspects is mission impossible. So my attempt is just to catch some of the perhaps most interesting features, and of course some of what I am going to say is more or less my personal views, and perhaps I will less include what was said by the panel, because you will remember that already. I will have no slides for obvious reasons, so you can lean back for the next 9 minutes, I guess. I think we agreed on many issues, but not on all. Some of us said that we are there already. We can go ahead almost full speed and promote the landscape approach. Everything works. Some, however, said we are not convinced that we are ready in all respects yet. We don't have all practical elements in place, at least not in such a way that it would make the landscape approach available. Better now? Thank you very much. Maybe I'm speaking too loudly. Maybe I have to calm down. But I think that we all welcomed what was said by some of the speakers also, that this really stimulates the debate within the sectors and across the sectors. So this is something to use in the future to continue learning and tapping on the experiences gained so far from this attempt to the landscape approach to better integrate policies and practices for multiple land uses. As to the starting point, I think we had unanimous understanding. There are so many reasons why we have to try to find better solutions for land use, solutions that have a rather holistic approach, because there are so many needs to fulfill. Agriculture has to produce more food for an increasing population. Also, forestry has to improve for the production of fiber. And to me, food is too often forgotten in the forestry context. There's a lot of potential in that respect within the forests also, not to talk about the fuel and the fodder. And then the water issue I also listed here among the issues that should definitely be on board our working list. And also the environmental services, I think, have to get due consideration. Then we made the bridge to the SDGs, and I think we all do hope that they will be an improved version compared to MDGs, especially from the point of view that they should be more universal and be better implementable at the national and local levels already. We started actually by saying that the landscape approach, there are so many definitions, but not one single established, largely agreed upon. But there is a theory on the landscape approach that has evolved during a couple of decades, already more than two decades, especially for the tropical regions. And it was good to hear to have actually at least two of the speakers to take us back to the historical development of the landscape approach, because that made us understand how it has been evolving and where we are now. And we also heard that it has already been implemented a lot. It has been used for practical development work at different scales. And Solomon, thank you for saving me to go into the scale issue. I don't have to go there anymore. We touched upon that already. That would have been a question for the work from now on to continue with, and I think we all noted that. We had several unanimous statements on the need to improve collaboration and interaction between stakeholders at all levels in the landscape approach, and also, if we stick to the sectoral administration systems as we dominantly have now, it was no surprise, I think, that we all supported better multi-stakeholder involvement, which actually has been an issue already in the sectoral approaches also for quite some time. And that's actually a common denominator between the sectoral approaches and the one that we discussed now, which perhaps could be built upon. I think that the multifunctionality can be discussed further, because I didn't really understand fully how the multifunctionality within one sector differ from multifunctionality within a landscape approach, if you take it fully on board. If we then would like to have the landscape approach better accepted and introduced as a practical tool, you provided us with good lists of what to do, and I thank especially Liz and Sten for doing that, but also many other came into what we need if we want to go forward. There is one question that I would like to specifically mention, because I think we didn't receive an explanation why that is, that we don't have the business sector more and better involved. So what are the reasons for that? Is it the lack of some fundamental elements in the landscape approach that keeps the business sector away, or what is the reason? Perhaps that could gain from receiving some more clarifications. Perhaps also the geographical distribution of where we have the landscape approach applied so far would need a little bit more of discussion. If it's a good one, why do we miss it in some parts of the world? To come to a conclusion, let me go into something that we touched upon also here in the panel, the administration or governance. I think that this is one of the major problems, because the landscape approach does not seem to have a structure that would directly fit into what exists in countries today. So at least a considerable amount of adaptation of present governmental and administrative structures would be needed in order to have the existing structures fit for the landscape approach, and vice versa, to establish a functioning administration. A practical good governance model that would serve policy making and politics as well is needed, of course, for many purposes, for monitoring, as we have heard, for reporting, for defining development grants, etc., supervising, etc. And if such a model is not created, then at least working bridges have to be constructed between the landscape approach and the administrative bodies at local and national levels that we have. So, how to continue this fruitful debate? Well, going one step back to institutionalize or not, I think the panel gave a good answer to that. Perhaps not really a need to today. Let us continue a little bit and have the landscape approach within the sectors in a holistic way applied before we perhaps in the future go a step further. But how to continue this fruitful debate? So let me give you one more reference that has been given you once before already. This European Tropical Forest Research Network. Actually, if you read the conclusions, they pretty well fit into what I could have made as my conclusions from today. That is especially a couple of sentences saying that what options exist to formalize negotiated outcomes in governance frameworks that have the legitimacy and mandate to enable implementation, monitoring and enforcement of decisions, etc. This is a good paper. It's much thicker than the summary that I have here, but you see it in Björn's presentation. And with that, I stop and thank you for your patience and excuse me for exceeding the time.
No problem. We were late, so that's fine.